Good afternoon, Peter Goertz. I'm a psychiatrist. Now, I don't know if it's true, but someone told me human beings are not computers. Nowadays, looking at some people, I'm not too sure, but I do believe human beings are not computers. So we have feelings, and feelings are somewhat intangible. We cannot measure them, we cannot put numbers on them, thank God. So things will hopefully not be overly protocolized in the future as far as psychotherapy. To an extent, that is already happening, that things are schematized often in psychotherapy, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but if it's overdone, in my opinion, that may cloud the picture somewhat. And again, feelings, in my opinion, we cannot necessarily put them into a schema. So we're all human, and we've all been through some kind of trauma, some more than others, and sometimes very severe trauma. And things can trigger us. I had an experience this past week where something triggered me, and I was just back into feeling the way I did a long, long time ago. And this is not a cerebral thing, obviously. So we want to embrace those feelings and not push them away, because if we push them away, then it can be like a pressure cooker. The feelings can express themselves in different ways. Physically, even, you can get ulcers. Feelings can affect our gastrointestinal tract, any part of our body, muscle tension. So we want to embrace our feelings. And if we're dealing, for example, with some kind of trauma, we want to embrace those feelings in a way that is not overwhelming, because we don't want to get to a point where we cannot function. So we're not dealing with something logical when we're looking at feelings. And we don't necessarily want to, when we start feeling, we don't necessarily want to, as soon as thoughts come into our minds, just follow those thoughts. Let's say someone triggered you, something in your life triggered you, and you were bullied as a child. And then you start thinking about, oh, I was bullied as a child, that's why I can't function, and I'll never be assertive because I don't feel good about myself because I was bullied, and so on and so on. So we don't necessarily, when we start feeling our feelings, we don't necessarily want to follow every thought that comes in. We don't want to be tempted to get away from our feelings by following thoughts. But you will get thoughts when you do embrace your feelings. You will get thoughts that come naturally. And those, in my experience, are the wise thoughts, and the thoughts that can help you actually cope with the trauma, cope with the feelings that come up. So we want to feel our feelings, like I said, and if we don't, that can really bite us in the form of physical issues even. And it can also bite us in a different way. A lot of people have such intense feelings or are so troubled by their feelings that they don't want to feel them. And that's why, one reason why drugs and alcohol are so commonly used, to get away from feelings, mitigate feelings. And that, of course, in the long run does not help us cope with our feelings. So what's often said is we want to be in the present moment, we want to be here now, we want to be mindful. Let's say if we're talking about some kind of post-traumatic stress, and in general also, but especially with post-traumatic stress, we want to be in the present, we want to be here now, in the moment, be mindful. But having said that, when we're doing that, feelings come up. And they can really bite us, especially if something triggers us. So again, one thing that's helped me is to feel the feelings and not follow every thought that comes up, like I'm feeling this way because someone in my family did this and that, and I'll never be able to function because of that. That's not necessarily the type of thinking path we want to go down. But if we primarily let ourselves feel our feelings and not be tempted by thoughts that are ingrained based on what we've heard over the years. But if we just feel our feelings and let feelings come up and let thoughts come up naturally, those thoughts can be very wise and can help us cope with the feelings, even very intense ones. But if you've been severely traumatized and have very intense feelings come up, you probably do not want to do this on your own, and you want to do this in a therapy session. And in general, it's often good not to do this on our own because we might get overwhelmed. But you can do it on your own if things are below a certain threshold and you're not overwhelmed. Thank you.